Hey, online growthers, it's Dick Polipnick here with another episode. Today I have the special guest, Wendy Wiesman. Wendy, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Marketer by background, passionate leader by day-to-day trade.
Very nice. So today's topic, we're going to be diving in on leadership. So if you either work for a company and you want to learn more about leadership development, or you actually have people underneath you, this is definitely the episode for you. So stay tuned.
There are so many things I can't control, but the things that I can. The Dick Polipnick Show.
All right, Wendy. So what can you tell us about leadership?
You know, I think leadership is not really a title, meaning you don't need to be the boss to be a leader. It's really important to think about what it is that you bring to the table and how you can take that to the next level.
Mm-hmm. So kind of like dive into that. So you mean that somebody who's cash register person could be a leader?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think we all have a skill set and we all have a talent that really we just need to optimize and capitalize on in some ways. What's really great is when someone sees that in us and helps to pull it out and challenges us to do more or be more.
So you can even be coworkers. Someone could be above you and you can still lead somebody who's technically has a tighter title above you.
For sure. I think what will really come across in those situations is the passion and talent and expertise that you have. So I think conversations that you and I have had about things that we're doing today, you've shared with me, hey, have you thought about? And I think that's a really key thing. Can we say to someone, and when are we saying to someone, hey, have you thought about? Because we want to share or can share an area of expertise that we have that really helps us think about taking it to the next level.
All right. So let's kind of dive into actual day-to-day, step one, step two kind of applications for somebody. Let's say that they're at the ground floor of an organization and they have that flair for leadership. They just don't have the credentials to be hired in a leadership position yet. What do you recommend they would do?
First of all, you have to change your mental state. You have to shift your thinking. So I always categorize this as three key things. You have to think like a leader, act like a leader, and then in time, really be that leader. So thinking's first step.
So let's dive into each of those three individually. So how do you think like a leader?
Okay, first, shift your thinking, right? Number two, make no apologies for the leadership that you're going to take on and for what you're going to lead. You know your area of expertise. You're going to screw it up every now and then. That's okay. Don't apologize for that. And then number three, be okay with failure, right? No one's perfect. We're going to figure things out as we go. And we've seen others do that. So a leader that begins to think that way really becomes a leader of others.
And I think it's important to mention that when you aren't afraid of failure, you're not just limiting it to don't be afraid of just your failure, but be hard on other people's. You need to be okay with everyone's failures because you need to have that relation of, if it's okay for me to fail, it's also okay for you to fail. You know what I mean? And have that mindset, not just for yourself, but for the people you are leading or hoping to lead. So tell me, how do they go about acting like a leader? Is it coming up to somebody and telling them you should do this better?
I mean, we get a lot of our examples from things that we see around us, right? And so the first way I think about acting like a leader is thinking about and considering people that you've worked with, leaders that you consider strong examples, and mimicking and or beginning to take on their behaviors, right? What would the boss do? Right? That's a great place to start.
So what if you're in a work environment where somebody maybe thinks you're coming off as you almost like a cocky attitude, this person thinks they know everything. How do you avoid the know-it-all kind of persona and establish I'm trying to lead you?
Great question. I think that's an area, an opportunity to talk about one team. The reason I'm doing this, Dick, is really because I care about our collective success. And so the one team mentality really can come forth through that response. And if it's authentic to that individual, people will resonate with that. I think if you're not authentic, that will be found out very quickly.
Right. So could you actually dive into a specific story that you can tell the audience of something on leadership that you think that they would get a good takeaway from?
Yeah, I think I had a leader on my team who by title wasn't managing people, wasn't a manager title, but this individual hand raised time and time again for new initiatives. And most of those initiatives I came to find out were really in her passion area. And as she continued to do that and say, I would like to, or this sounds great, it gave me the opportunity to hold her out as an example to others. This individual is leading by hand raising, right? For the betterment of the team. Yes. Yes. And leading, essentially, where then she brought others around her to move that portion of her work forward. And it really was just her initiative to do that.
Right. So what is like one typical like tip or takeaway that you think people could do, like an action item, like today, right after you pause this video or you're done listening to this podcast or reading this blog, what is one thing they should do right away?
I think they have to think about what they want out of leadership, because first you have to decide that you want to lead, which gets to that first step of thinking like a leader. So decide today, decide right today, right now. What do you want? And then begin to shift your thinking, right? Think, act, be. Shift your thinking.
Gotcha. So who could be a leader?
Everyone, anyone, right?
So, I mean, like, is it matter by experience, age, industry?
No, I think vertical is irrelevant. I think title is irrelevant. I think what most of us do is put a barrier around ourselves to say, I wasn't given that title, therefore I am not the leader. Why not you?
Right.
Who better than you to lead?
There's managers and then there's leaders, right? Those are two different things in an organization.
Totally different things. And what sits behind that often is influence. You know when the titled boss isn't being really the authentic boss, the authentic leader, because oftentimes their influence and the leaders behind them aren't there, right? And so we can see those real and authentic leaders like you, individuals like yourself, who are bringing people forward.
That's awesome. So Wendy, what is one resource that people can look up? It can be a book, a movie, someone to look up on Google. What is that one resource you want them to look up?
Yeah, I would point people to TED and TED Talks. There's a talk on vulnerability that I think is really interesting. And as we first become leaders, we have to be okay with being vulnerable, being a potential failure in certain things, even though we have great areas of expertise.
Gotcha. So if they look up, TED Talks on YouTube and then vulnerability, they should be able to find it.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's your one resource. And Wendy, what is like your one line that you live by?
My life mantra is work hard, play harder, because life is too short and, we're only here for a short period of time. So why not make the most of it on both ends of the spectrum?
I love it. And my last question is, what is one thing or one question I should have asked you that I didn't ask that you kind of want to talk about?
Good question. Who are one of my favorite leaders?
All right, Wendy, who are one of your favorite leaders? That's a great question.
One of my favorite leaders was a recent boss. Those are the best bosses, someone who's a boss and a leader. This individual, Matt Merrick, is someone who drew out my expertise and passions and said, go do that and do more.
I love it. And what's one place that people can find you, that they want to get hold of you?
For sure, you should find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. So we'll make sure that you will include all the resources that Wendy has mentioned, including the transcript from this video or podcast at onlinegrowthsystems.com/blog/show notes. Thank you guys for watching. And Wendy, do you have any last words?
No, thank you guys. Let's lead.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I come from a town where most of the people are so close-minded. They go into school and they work in a job, but they don't even like it. I won't be put in a box. Nobody telling me what I